Ever watched a classic Western and been captivated by the stagecoach? Hollywood shows us thrilling adventures, noble heroes, and a hint of romance against breathtaking landscapes. Think John Wayne in Stagecoach leading a group through danger, emerging changed. But here's the truth, that Hollywood stagecoach is mostly a fantasy. The real story is far harsher. Today, we're uncovering the brutal truth of 19th century stagecoach travel, a world of misery, discomfort, and danger beyond any shootout. Part 1. Hollywood's frontier fantasy versus the brutal truth. When you think of stagecoaches, films like John Ford's Stagecoach come to mind, where a colorful cast of characters embarks on an adventurous journey. The coach seems spacious, offering room for conversation, drama, and excitement. These films promise thrilling chases, daring robberies, and heroic moments, turning the stagecoach into a mobile stage for human drama. But the real story of 19th century stagecoach travel was far from glamorous. Hollywood focuses on the dramatic ambushes but overlooks the constant discomfort, treacherous roads, cramped conditions, filth, and the ever-present threat of disease and accidents. The romanticized view of stagecoach travel helped shape the myth of a young, adventurous nation, transforming a painful ordeal into a symbol of rugged individualism. The truth? It was an experience most people today would find almost unbearable. Part 2. The Concorde Discomfort Coach. Built for endurance, not comfort. The most iconic stagecoach, the Concorde, was designed in the 1820s with the goal of offering a more comfortable, elegant ride. Its innovative leather suspension allowed the coach body to swing, providing a smoother journey on the better roads of the East. Despite this, comfort was always relative, especially on the rough, primitive trails of the American West. The Concorde typically held 6, 9, or 12 passengers, but often packed in more, with some riding on the roof or clinging to the sides. Inside, space was cramped, just over 4 feet wide and 4.5 feet high. Passengers were squeezed shoulder to shoulder, as Mark Twain recalled, often tumbling into a pile due to the lurching. The leather suspension, though a breakthrough, wasn't perfect. One traveler recalled bouncing painfully against the hard seat and roof. The removal of glass windows, replaced by leather or canvas curtains, offered little protection from dust, rain, or extreme temperatures. And with mail often piled high inside, the cramped space became even tighter. The Concorde coach was a testament to the grit of those who endured its brutal ride. Part 3. Are we there yet? The torturous truth of the journey. The romantic idea of a stagecoach gliding through scenic landscapes fades fast once you experience the reality of the journey. The biggest challenge? The terrible roads. Out west, many were little more than dirt paths, muddy, rutted, and prone to deep snow or dust. One infamous type, the corduroy road, was made of logs laid across marshy ground. Charles Dickens described it as so jarring, it felt like it would dislocate your bones. The pace was agonizingly slow, averaging just 5 to 12 miles per hour, sometimes barely 7 to 12 miles per day. What today would be a few hours by car could take 3 full days by stagecoach. The constant motion of the rough roads led to exhaustion, bruising, and muscle strain. Overcrowding worsened the misery, with passengers squished together inside and mailbags flying around. There was no escape from the harsh environment: extreme heat, biting cold, stinging dust, rain, and swarms of insects. Long-distance trips could last up to 22 days, both day and night. A journey from St. Louis to San Francisco took around 25 grueling days, with little food and no rest. Stops were brief, mostly just to change horses, and sometimes passengers had to walk to help ease the strain on the animals or push the coach up steep hills. Every moment of the journey was an assault on the body and mind. Before we jump to the next part, hit like and subscribe for my interesting history tales. Part 4. Surviving the stops, way stations, and refreshments. Brief stops at way stations offered little relief. Swing stations were only for changing horses, while larger home stations, often small inns or private homes, served basic meals and cramped lodging. Even here, rest was short. Butterfield overland mail stages made quick 10-minute stops, and food quality was a common complaint. Taverns exploited captive passengers, offering poor meals at inflated prices. Granville Stewart recalled every meal being the same: bacon, ham, and dreaded dried apple pie. Some passengers brought their own food, but hygiene was a major issue. Victorians were especially horrified by the lack of cleanliness. One driver recalled a cook petting animals before mixing biscuit dough. When a passenger complained about the dirt, the proprietor casually said, "Everyone should eat a peck of dirt." The passenger dryly responded, he didn't plan to eat his entire portion in one meal. Lodging was just as harsh. Women crowded into a single room while men shared beds, sometimes 3 or 4 to a bed with strangers. These stops, meant to provide a break, often added to the journey's brutality. The lack of decent food, hygiene, and shelter made these brief halts more of a necessary evil than a reprieve. The ordeal was far from over. Each stop reminded travelers just how relentless and unforgiving their journey was. Part 5. The Unspoken Horrors. Sanitation and Sickness on the Trail. Beyond the visible discomforts, the true horrors of stagecoach travel lay in the daily struggle with basic needs and rampant disease. With no onboard toilets, passengers had to seek relief roadside, offering little privacy. Personal hygiene was nearly impossible. At way stations, the wash station was a horse trough with a shared cup, towel, and toothbrush. Passengers lived in filth, often infested with fleas, lice, and bedbugs from sleeping next to strangers who hadn't bathed in months. But the most terrifying reality was disease. The #1 killer on the trails was illness. Cholera spread through contaminated water, killing within 24 hours. Dysentery, typhoid, measles, tuberculosis, and mountain fever also claimed lives. The cramped coaches and unsanitary stations were breeding grounds for disease. With no real medical care, pioneers relied on poor home remedies. Understanding of germs was limited, and many believed diseases were caused by bad air or miasmas instead of pathogens. It was a deadly reality no film could ever capture. Part 6. The Real Perils of the Prairie Beyond Hollywood's Gunfights. While Hollywood romanticizes gunfights, the real dangers on the trail were far more mundane but often deadlier. Accidents were common, wheels falling off, out-of-control horses, and failing brakes. Coaches frequently broke down due to poor roads, mechanical failures like snapped axles, or driver errors. River crossings were another risk, with collapsing bridges or overturned coaches, leading to serious injuries or even death. Robbery was a constant threat. Wells Fargo coaches alone were robbed nearly 350 times between 1870 and 1884. Robbers typically struck at slow points, with violence varying from polite to brutal. Mail pouches and treasure boxes were the primary targets. Armed shotgun messengers and armored coaches were employed for protection. Hollywood's portrayal of Native American attacks is also distorted. While attacks did occur, they were often motivated by complex factors: resources, retaliation, or resistance to encroachment, not the mindless violence often depicted. Many so-called Indian attacks were actually committed by white criminals in disguise. While fear was real, understanding the historical context behind these encounters paints a more nuanced picture, far from the simplistic, savage image Hollywood often peddled. Part 7. The Human Element. Passengers and Crew. The human element, the psyche of passengers, the social dynamics, and the lives of the crew, was an essential part of the stagecoach's brutal reality. For passengers, the mental and emotional toll was heavy. Constant fear, overwhelming boredom, and deep exhaustion. Every bump on the road was a reminder of the ever-present dangers that lurked ahead. Between moments of terror, there were long stretches of nothingness, with each mile draining more energy. The relentless travel, poor food, lack of sleep, and stress created an atmosphere of pervasive weariness. Tensions often ran high in such cramped quarters, leading to friction among the passengers. With little space to escape one another, even the smallest actions could provoke conflicts. Stage lines like Wells Fargo had rules designed to maintain some semblance of order: share liquor, spit with the wind, and avoid snoring on fellow passengers. There were even rules against discussing politics or religion, and prohibitions on profane language. Passengers were told not to mention past stagecoach robberies or Indian attacks. These were reminders of the constant disorder. The drivers, or whips, were respected for their skill in navigating treacherous roads, but their jobs were dangerous, exhausting, and poorly paid. Shotgun messengers, tasked with protecting valuable cargo, often became the first targets in a robbery. These men bore the greatest risks for minimal reward. The passengers themselves were a diverse group: soldiers, clergy, scholars, servants, and noblemen alike. Their primary reason for traveling was to transport mail and money, with passengers as secondary sources of income. People traveled for business, health, migration, or the pursuit of adventure. but the reality was often harsh and unforgiving. The romanticized Hollywood version of stagecoach travel stands in stark contrast to the brutal truth. The historical reality was one of profound discomfort, danger, and unhygienic conditions. While the movies glorify the excitement, the true story is one of extraordinary human endurance. The grit required to endure such conditions makes the westward expansion far more impressive than the glossy image Hollywood portrays. Embracing this brutal reality provides a deeper understanding of the determination that drove people to embark on these journeys. The decision to travel by stagecoach was often driven by the hope of a better life, duty, or a lack of other options. The passengers and crew, in their resilience, became figures of remarkable strength and perseverance. The Wild West, experienced from the cramped, perilous confines of a stagecoach, was far wilder and much more brutal than any cinematic version could ever capture. What part of this harsh stagecoach journey shocked you the most? Was it the cramped, suffocating conditions, the unforgiving roads, the ever-present danger of disease, or something else entirely? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. If this true-to-life glimpse into the Old West opened your eyes, give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into history. Thanks for watching.